pie of life. So this is just an exercise that we're going to do. This is your journal assignment for the week, and so this is going to tell you how to do it. I'm gonna I'm just gonna warn you if you don't like for things to be ambiguous, if you prefer, say, the multiple choice quizzes over some of these journal assignments, you're not gonna like this one very much because it's another one of those assignments that has a lot of leeway in it because I really want you to tailor it and individualize it for yourself. So I'm going to just give you sort of an example of one way that it might be and talk to you about some other ways that you might do yours. Okay, so I gave you a little bit larger definition from Greenglass et al. 1999 about what proactive coping was, and this is part of it. For the proactive individual, life is full of abundant resources. This person is sort of always accumulating resources, takes steps to prevent resource depletion, and is capable of mobilizing resources when needed. So this is just gonna put your Ellis is so nerdy off the charts right now, but it's kind of like playing an RPG, and that's sort of why we like this sort of thing, is because, you know, the time to stock up on health potions or mana potions is when you're at the cellar in town, you know, when you're not being bombarded with things. You're in the safety of town. It's not when you're actually out on a mission, you know, but when you are, you know, being attacked by the ogre, dragon, etc., that's when you need to be able to mobilize resources, right? And so yeah, you do things like buy larger backpacks when you get lots of resources and stuff like that. So I'm actually going to stop with this metaphor right now before you guys start thinking that I've totally lost it. So we're going to talk, this pie of life thing is really about your resources, sort of seeing in which areas of life you have what kinds of resources, and how you can kind of fill up those tanks so that resources are available to be mobilized when you need them. Okay, so lots of kinds of resources. This is a list that I made for me. Your list might be different. This is the first place where we might diverge on this. Some of these are going to be pretty common. You're welcome to use these categories if they make sense to you. So physical resources, physical health stuff, that's for sure something that, you know, really everybody has. Things like energy, sleep, the energy that you get from eating, stuff like that. So anything that helps you to kind of maximize your physical capability that doesn't serve as limitation. Physical resources. Financial resources is probably going to be something for everybody. You know, everything is harder when you're broke. You might be, you know, grad school right now and be broke. You might not be broke right now and you just have to believe me. But everything is more stressful when you are worried about paying for your basic necessities. So, for example, living at or below the poverty line adds a lot of stress to everything that you're doing. So living above the poverty line, for example, you know, money doesn't really make you a good bit happier after that, after you know, sort of have all your basic needs met. But financial resources really can help a lot of things go more smoothly. I wish that weren't true, but that whole money makes the world go round thing. Intellectual resources. This is one of those ones where I don't know if this is something that you'll feel like is important to you. It's something that I feel like is really important to me. I'll give you some examples of what that might look like in a couple slides. Emotional resources. So what do you have in terms of, you know, being able to take care of yourself, do emotion regulation, things like that. Social resources. Almost everybody's probably going to have something like that on there, just because your interpersonal resources, your relationships are they're really important. They're really critical. If you haven't gotten an idea about that so far already, I think you must have just skipped the first 4 weeks. And then spiritual resources. Again, that's one that might not really fit for everybody, but fits for me, and sort of staying spiritually healthy. So I will say yes, some of these are a little blendy, you know, and you might not define them exactly the same way that I do. That's fine, right? This is about you and about examining your own resources. And you might have stuff that you consider to be a resource that I don't have on here. That's fine. So Okay, you're just going to kind of want to decide what those areas of health are for you, or the areas where you draw resources from, and make a list of it. That's probably step one-ish. All right? Step two. So step two, I've obviously done this in PowerPoint because I'm in PowerPoint. But we're looking to make some kind of pie. Do you have to do it in PowerPoint? No. Could you do it as a sphere? I don't really know. Are you capable of doing that? If you are, I'd be very interested in seeing it. But I am looking for some way that we divide up all sort of 100%, if we can conceptualize that. So pie chart of some kind in some format that is turn-inable. And you can also do your pie chart in a couple of different ways. So I've said that my pie chart is about health or support in general. So if you look down here, you sort of see where my pie stuff is. My physical support gets kind of the smallest slice of my pie. I try to eat healthfully, but one of my, emotional things is having Oreos occasionally. So, I do yoga twice a week and ballet once a week, but that's, I don't work out every day. So I just kind of, that's a sort of smaller piece of my pie here. My largest piece of pie is social, and that's because a lot of what I do is social in terms of my job and stuff, certainly, but also in terms of having health and support. This piece of my life takes up, it gives me a lot, right? So relationship with husband, relationship with kids, relationship with friends, relationships with students, things like that, coworkers. So here, this one is called health or support, saying, this is how much of that I get. You could also do it like in terms of time. I spend this much time taking care of my body. I spend this much time taking care of my relationships. I take this much time taking care of my spirituality. So it doesn't have to be this exactly. This can really be whatever you want, whatever makes sense for you. Again, with the ambiguity, I know. You'll be fine. You're going to make it. So step 3, or I don't know, maybe this is step 1.5 for you, I'm not sure, is defining what kinds of stuff matters for you in here. So physical health makes a lot of sense. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, stuff like that. Financial health, so for me, working is part of my financial health because I get paid from work and then I have financial resources. But another thing in our family is budget management. So that's an important thing. We can sort of flex the budget around to meet different needs at different times. So that's a thing. I told you I would tell you what I, think is important in terms of intellectual health. And so for me, a way that I build resources is reading. Again, I know it's sort of nerdy, but I read for pleasure and for knowledge. I always have sort of multiple books going at a time. I'm always reading something by like the founding fathers and mothers of psychology, but I'm also always reading, just like some kind of like a young adult fantasy novel or something ridiculous, Managing cognitive distortions I put on here as an example. The more you're able to, or I say for me, able to make sure that my thinking is staying, free from as much bias as possible, that ends up influencing my well-being in a lot of ways, right? And kind of mingling with things like emotional health and social health. For me, I put emotional health or emotional resources come from doing things like practicing mindfulness, going to a counselor. This might be something that you, do with venting with friends, or I do this thing where, I try to every other Friday have coffee with my sister before I go to work, and we use that kind of as a time to do emotional venting. Her more than me, truthfully, but it's important to us both. So that's kind of a blend, right, between emotional and social. Social resources, having friends over, having a date night, those are examples for me. What does that look like for you? What does it look like to, build relationships up so that those relationships are there when you need them, whether you're in crisis or not? Yeah. spiritual health, regular Bible study, going to church. For somebody else, it might be something different, just like volunteering, sort of accessing that spiritual side of them. That might be a meditation practice or things like that. So physical health, the body, financial health, pragmatic resources, intellectual, emotional health, some of your internal kinds of stuff. Social health means anything that you do to make sure that you're surrounded with enough people who might have access to resources if you didn't. And then spiritual health, kind of internal, transcendent, finding the calm place inside you, sort of thing. So again, if your list is different than my list, that's okay. You don't have to have the same sections of your pie as I have. You might fill them with different things. That's fine. So your assignment has a couple of additional steps from that. So you do need to make a pie of some kind. Again, might be different than mine. In any kind of format that you'd like. By now, if you draw me a picture, then you should scan it into PDF and send it. If you do it in something like PowerPoint or Excel or something like that, because you're a numbersy sorts of person, then go ahead and turn that in. If somehow you did make a life sphere, you might have too much time on your hands. But if you did that, I don't know. You'd have to probably send me a video. A time-lapse video of your creation of this thing would just be stunning. I would be elated to watch that. No bonus points or anything, but it'd be really fun. After you have made your pie, your assignment goes on to talk about how you can fill your pie up. How you can fill up those areas of emotional resources in different increments of time. So, there's like a 5-minute one, 15 to 30 minutes, more than 60 minutes. If you have 2 hours, you can do, you could meet a friend for lunch, not just coffee, maybe lunch, right? But if you only have, 7 minutes, that doesn't mean that you couldn't still reach out to someone via text, for example. So I want you to kind of be like building a repertoire of ways that you can do resource accumulation in each of these areas, sort of just depending on what kind of space you have in your life. Okay, I hope that helps. You guys put questions in the forum or something, or email me if you have questions.